Yesterday, I presented the preliminaries, if you will, to what I think is the most important part of the message. I spoke at length about the power of the mind. And one of the things that I had lunch with Linda today, when I was having lunch, we were talking about it. She was saying that the shocking thing for her in that experience was how quickly the changing of a thought impacts the muscles or the entire physiology of the body. In Power versus Force, Dr. Hawkins has presented a scale that I want to present to you here today, and it's just an arbitrary scale. It's numbers these numbers could go from 0 to 2 million, or they could go to 0 to 10, or whatever. His scale goes from 0 to 1,000, and what it is a scale that measures energy. Now remember, when I spoke yesterday, the idea that Einstein said that nothing happens until something moves. That everything in the universe is energy. And energy is not good or bad, right or wrong, moral or immoral. Energy is fast or slow, high or low. And that our objective in understanding this and what it means to us is to be able to move to higher and higher and faster energies. That when a higher energy, a faster energy, is put into the presence or the energy field of a very low and a very slow energy, that energy is nullified, the lower energy, and dissolved. It disappears. But more than it dissolving and disappearing, for example, if you're in a room of darkness, darkness is just simply a lower and a slower energy than light. Light moves very, very fast. The absence of light shows a very slow and a very low energy. If you're in a dark room and you are about to light a candle in that dark room, you don't have to say to the darkness, you better get out of here now. You're going to have to dissolve. You're going to have to scurry because I'm about to bring some light in here. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is light a candle, turn on a light, and the darkness dissolves. The darkness disappears. But more than that, and this is really crucial for what I'm presenting here this afternoon, the darkness is converted to light. So that when you bring higher energy to the presence of lower and slower energy, energy that we call evil, energy that we call disease, energy that we call depression, you are not only sending the disease and the depression and the despair away, you are converting that very energy into the higher and the faster energy that is being brought to its presence. The same thing is true of hatred. When you bring love to the presence of hatred, hatred not only dissolves, but it turns to love. When you bring higher energy, even in the field of medicine, we're discovering now with energy medicine that experimentation is being done now. Andy Weil, who I was just with the other day, suggests that the medicine of the future will be energy medicine, and that medical doctors will be in medical schools will be trained in energy medicine. It'll be the real upcoming area for investigation and for research. They're now doing experiments with lasers, which are very, very, very fast energies, and they're taking tumors that are present in what we call cancerous tumors and even non-cancerous tumors, but growths in the body, and they're bombarding the tumor and the surrounding tissue with these extremely high, fast energies. And they're discovering that not only do the tumors begin to dissolve and begin to be removed, but the energy that was in the tumor is now joining with the higher, faster laser energy, and it is being converted into something that we call healing or health. The implications for what I'm speaking about here are absolutely astonishing for everything in your life. And what I'm about to present to you in this little paradigm in the next few moments is something that could change your life. As I said to you, if you don't take anything else with you, be sure to commit yourself to reading Power versus Force. And his follow-up to it, if you're up to it, which I had some about here as well, it's called The Eye of the Eye. And in there he talks about how we can calibrate virtually everything in our lives. Every book of the Bible has been calibrated. All of the great songs have been calibrated. The calibration goes like this. Over here to my left is a calibration of 0. And as far as I can go on this stage, let's say up to the speaker, represents 1,000. The energy level of 1,000 to here. All right? Now, anything that goes up to number 200 on this scale that I'm just arbitrarily giving to you, let's say 200 is right here, represents something called force. And every thought and every emotion that you have that calibrates between 0 and 200 is a thought or an emotion that weakens you in one way or another and lowers the energy field. And those calibrations, those thoughts, I'll give you the number 20 is the lowest, and the thought is shame. And this, by the way, is a 29-year study that was conducted over almost his entire professional lifetime. This is a medical doctor and a PhD researcher as well. And in this 30 years, these kinesthesiological tests that I just briefly demonstrated with Linda up here yesterday are ways that we can determine, because as I was trying to point out to you, the body comes from something that we call truth, perfection. And it can only respond to truth. The moment that you introduce a lie into the body, the mind can fool, but the body, which is this perfect creation of God, only responds to that which is true. And so you can test virtually anything, even the lives of the greatest masters who ever walked among us, by asking questions of the body and watching how the body responds, forgetting about what the mind has to say about it. The body can only respond to truth. Number 20 is shame. At 30, we're moving up now. 30 is guilt. 50 is apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, until we reach approximately 200. Now, every energy that is below 200 is an energy that when you have that thought, the thoughts of humiliation, of blame, of despair, of anxiety, of hatred, of scorn, any of these kinds of thoughts, these thoughts are in what he calls force. And whenever you use force as a way of communicating, a way of talking, a way of being, you create, the problem is that we create a counterforce. And that people who calibrate below 200 in their lives, and anyone can be calibrated at any time. Even photographs can be calibrated. The photograph on the cover of A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem calibrates around 580. And it was a picture that was taken in Assisi after just an astonishing miracle had happened in my life, which I'll share a little bit with you a little bit later. And we have seen experiments where they'll take a picture of a Mother Teresa, and they'll take a picture of a Charles Manson, and they will put those photographs in envelopes that the person holding them doesn't know who is in the envelope. And the picture of Charles Manson, who calibrates somewhere around 30 or 40, will make the person go weak, and they don't even know what picture that they're holding. You have to, it's almost like I said yesterday, you have to willingly suspend your disbelief. You have to do a somersault into the inconceivable and allow yourself to open up to the possibility that every thought that you have and every emotion that you have and every internal experience that you have has an impact not only on you, on everyone that you encounter in your life and everything that you encounter in your life and whatever energy field that you radiate to. That everything in the universe is energy and is impacted by the speed at which we calibrate. And all of us can raise the level at which we vibrate in our lives. All of us can do it simply by changing our thoughts, by practicing meditation, by listening to different kind of music, by being in energy fields where we have a knowing, where we reconnect to God, where we make conscious contact with our source. We can change the energy level at which we are living. And getting to a place where you understand that. It's why I like to bring people out, demonstrate to them the food that we eat, the substances that we put in our bodies. My teacher once said to me that if you want to reach the levels of being able to perform miracles and attract miracles into your life, you have to purify this temple that you live in. And your temple, the temple that you live in, is something that was intended into this universe with perfection. It isn't spirituality in this presentation here today is not about what church you attend and what scriptures you read. It's about how you stay connected to the perfection from which you were intended in the very first place. And I'd like you to really understand that. And when you do, you'll understand that anything that you do that is self-defeating to this temple, as the Sufis used to say, if you don't have a temple in your heart, you'll never find your heart in a temple. And it's about having a temple in your heart. It's about staying connected. And when you do, exercise becomes a regular part of your life. It's a spiritual experience. The foods that you eat become a spiritual experience. The music that you listen to becomes a spiritual experience. The books that you allow into your home, the programs that you allow to be on your television set, the kinds of ideas that you read in newspapers. So it's this force and counterforce thing. Now, that when you have compassion in your heart for those who are operating or living at lower levels, and I remember the story that I heard shortly after the World Trade Center disaster, and it was of grandfather talking to his grandson. And the grandson was looking up at his grandpa, and his grandpa said, you know, he said, I feel as if I have two wolves barking inside of me. He said, the first wolf is filled with anger and hatred and bitterness and mostly revenge. And then he said, I have a second wolf barking inside of me who is filled with love and kindness and compassion and even forgiveness. And the grandson looked up at his grandpa and said, which wolf do you think will win, Grandpa? And his grandfather responded, whichever one I feed. And we have to look at what we feed internally in ourselves. Because every time we use force, and what we were talking about at lunch today, it's like, what do you do, someone asked me, with a man who represents these lower energies, like a Saddam Hussein or an Adolf Hitler? What we do is we have to learn inch by inch that humanity has to grow, and that inside each and every body there are cells. And every now and then a cell will enter into the body that doesn't want to cooperate with the cells adjacent to it. It wants to start gobbling them up. We call these cancers. We call these illnesses. We call these arthritises. We call them blood diseases and so on. And this cell that doesn't want to cooperate with the cell adjacent to it and has no connection to the whole will start gobbling up every cell. And eventually it's a very stupid organism because it will destroy the very host that it needs in order for it to survive itself. It will kill itself as well. It will have no more host on which it can live. So a cancer cell is a very stupid cell indeed. It destroys itself by destroying that which is next to it. But we don't go in and bomb the whole body. We just carve it out, or we isolate it. So it's a difference in a shift. Now, when we move from 200 up into the 300s and up into the 400s and 500s, what happens is we begin to make a shift away from force, and we begin to respond with higher and higher levels of awareness and higher levels of consciousness. And as we do, we make a shift in the impact that we have on other people. When you begin to move your energy level above 200, you shift and make a difference in the impact that you have on those people around you. So that when someone at 300, 400, or 500 at these calibration levels who is using the energy of love and kindness and forgiveness and peace and so on, when these people are in your presence, they make a very significant difference in how you react to them and on even the ability to manifest and attract abundance into one's life or healing. So that here's how it works. A person who is below 200 is someone who is moving against, who has to have an enemy, is someone who drains power, is always looking for energy from someone else, is trying to take it away from you. This is someone who needs to argue. This is someone who needs to prove a point. This is someone who needs to make you feel worse about yourself. And generally when you're in the energy field of someone below 200, when they leave your energy space, when they leave the field that you are in them with them, you feel worse about yourself. You feel drained for having been in their experience. You feel weakened, and you feel as if you need to get away from that because they are drainers of energy. They take, and they need to confront, and they need to have an argument. Now, the difference is that a person above 200, particularly in the 300 and 400 range, is a person who never drains, but instead is someone who supplies energy. And when you're in the energy field of someone like this, they make you feel better about yourself. You not only feel better about yourself, but for having been in the presence of that person, you feel energized rather than having been depleted of your energy. Do you see the difference? You feel as if you can do things. You feel as if there's nothing that can stop you. You feel as if you've been awakened. You feel as if everything is going to work. And you have a sense of faith and a sense of beauty and a sense of knowing that there's goodness in the world. But mostly you have a good feeling about yourself. And it's all because of being in the energy field of someone who calibrates to a higher frequency. They don't take, they give. They don't argue, they supply. They don't want from you, they offer you. People will say to me over and over and over again, I understand what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. And I, of course, am operating at a much higher level than all of those people around me. And the people who really need to hear this message are not here today. They're back home watching a football game or whatever it is that they're doing. But they obviously wouldn't even come to this because I'm at such a much higher spiritual level. But I'm in the energy field of people who are always bringing me down. They're cruel, they're nasty, they're inconsiderate, they're not compassionate, they're vicious, they're hateful, they're any number of things that I don't want or can't tolerate in my life. And they bring me down. You've heard it, you've said it. They bring me down. My husband doesn't understand me. My boss doesn't get it. The people around me don't get it. It's a lousy, hateful world out there. There's a lot of people out there who are mean. There are a lot of people who are represented by those people that we quote call our enemies and so on. And I'm in that energy field and I can't help but being brought down. And I always ask myself, and I respond to that with imagine how Jesus would respond to such an observation. I don't want to be over there with all of those thieves. You know, I can't go over there. I just can't be around them because they just bring me down. And you laugh because it's too absurd. They're just filthy. Those are just people that, they bring me down, so I stay away from them. I don't want to be around them. That wasn't his way. And I suggest to you that the reason that people with lower energies bring you down is not because it is them that are bringing you down, but it is because you join them in responding to them with the same energy that you despise. So if someone hates you and you hate them for hating you, you have responded to force with a counterforce. Anything above 200 is power. It's empowerment. Anything below 200 is force. If you get angry at somebody for being angry at you, if you get upset with somebody who is upsetting, if you get hateful towards someone who is acting hateful towards you, in your thoughts or in your actions, that is what it is that is bringing you down. But if you learn something else, something that St. Francis taught us in this prayer of St. Francis, indeed, there is a spiritual solution to every problem. And energy moves from slow to high and low to fast, or reverse that, slow to fast and low to high. And that the lowest energies are the energies of the world of the physical. This hand looks like a solid mass, but if you look at it under a microscope, you know that it's not a solid mass. It's nothing but a bunch of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles all moving about. You know that. You know that inside there, despite what your eyes tell you, that inside here there is nothing but energy. And I've said a lot of things, and if there was an audiologist out there who was going to give you the energy report of the sound that was in this room, and all of an iridologist who was going to give you a report on all of the light in this room, you would discover that there are no problems in anything that was said or anything that you have seen. There are no problems in it. All they would do is show you, well, here's the energy. It would be a big scroll. They'd pull it out on an oscilloscope, and it would go like this, and then he said this, and then he said this, and you'd say, well, wait a minute, I thought maybe I heard him swear once, and that really kind of upset me. That was really a problem. And they'd say, no, can't find it in here. No, it's not in the report. The report just shows energy, but I didn't like that. Well, it's not in the report, because energy has no problems. It's only when we take it in and process it that it becomes a problem for us. There's no problems out there. And every problem that we have is located back here in this lowest energy field of all, the energy of the solid. And I suggest to you that the reason that people with lower energies bring you down is not because it is them that are bringing you down, but it is because you join them in responding to them with the same energy that you despise. So if someone hates you, and you hate them for hating you, you have responded to force with a counterforce. Anything above 200 is power. It's empowerment. Anything below 200 is force. If you get angry at somebody for being angry at you, if you get upset with somebody who is upsetting, if you get hateful towards someone who is acting hateful towards you, in your thoughts or in your actions, that is what it is that is bringing you down. But if you learn something else, something that St. Francis taught us in this prayer of St. Francis, this prayer isn't just a Catholic prayer. The prayer of Francesco is an 800-year-old technology for spiritual problem solving. Indeed, there is a spiritual solution to every problem. And energy moves from slow to high and low to fast, or reverse that, slow to fast and low to high. And that the lowest energies are the energies of the world of the physical. This hand looks like a solid mass, but if you look at it under a microscope, you know that it's not a solid mass. It's nothing but a bunch of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles all moving about. You know that. You know that inside there, despite what your eyes tell you, that inside here there is nothing but energy. And I've said a lot of things, and if there was an audiologist out there who was going to give you the energy report of the sound that was in this room, and an iridologist who was going to give you a report on all of the light in this room, you would discover that there are no problems in anything that was said or anything that you have seen. There are no problems in it. All they would do is show you, well, here's the energy. It would be a big scroll. They'd pull it out on an oscilloscope, and it would go like this, and then he said this, and then he said this, and you'd say, well, wait a minute, I thought maybe I heard him swear once, and that really kind of upset me. That was really a problem. And they'd say, no, can't find it in here. No, it's not in the report. The report just shows energy, but I didn't like that. Well, it's not in the report, because energy has no problems. It's only when we take it in and process it that it becomes a problem for us. There's no problems out there. And every problem that we have is located back here in this lowest energy field of all, the energy of the solid. And then we move up from the energy of light to the energy of sound, or of thoughts. And we actually think faster than light. And every thought that we have, as I've talked about in Power versus Force, has an energy component to it. And the higher the thought, as you move up towards love and peace and what I call intention, you change the impact that it has on everything in your life. Not just on everything in your body, but your life as well. And everyone that you impact. Some will feel better for being in your presence, some will feel worse. And the most astonishing piece of research, let me see if I brought it with me, is in the eye of the eye. This is one of the things that Hawkins concludes. One individual who calibrates at 700, if we had one individual calibrating at 700 on this planet, they would counterbalance the negativity of 70 million individuals who calibrate below 200. One person at 700 can counterbalance 70 million individuals who are at force or below. Imagine if there weren't people, enough people, who were moving the energy level of all of humanity with whom we are all connected. If we didn't have these people and this energy and this music and these books and these words and even events such as this going out across the world on the internet and so on, if we didn't have this and we moved our collective consciousness to a place where we didn't have enough people above the 200 range, the collective negativity of the people who live at this energy level would self-destruct the entire human race. That's for you to know how important and significant it is for you to live at these higher levels. And what did Francesco, and when I wrote Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, this photograph, which calibrates just a little bit under 600, which means that carrying the energy, if you look at the last 3 books of mine that have been written, this one, A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, the 10 Secrets book, and the Getting in the Gap, notice the design, notice the feel, notice the photos, notice the drawings, notice the way that it feels in your hand, because everything has an energy. And we can design books, and we can design to understand. When Linda held the CD next to her of Sky's Music, and then she held the aspartame, one of them made her go strong and one of them made her go weak. Everything has an energy. And when Nisargadatta said to me, you don't have to read this book, he said, this was in 1982, he said, just carry it with you. It's called I Am That. Just carry it with you, and the energy from the words that you carry with you will impact those around you. I said, this is just a crazy old fart. What could he be talking about? How could, and some of you are probably thinking that about me today. How could a person say that just carrying something around could impact? And then I began to see the research, and Power versus Force came into my life, and Dr. Hawkins, and I began to see that I can make an impact and a difference just simply by the things that I carry around with me, what I wear, how I speak, what I listen to. I can make, and I can carry something around. This photograph was taken in Assisi after I carried a young man named John Grable up the steps of this castle, and he had muscular dystrophy, and we were going up the steps, and suddenly, as I had him, he said, I can't go any further, because he walked like this. He had these huge braces, 20-pound braces on his legs, and he had to do this in order to get up each step. And then he had to take this one and go up the step. But this had a circular staircase in it, and it started to narrow, and he couldn't get his leg out any further. He could only go like this far. And he said, Wayne, he said, I can't go up any higher. I can't. And there was a line of people below us. And I said, John, all you have to do is put your arms around my back, and I'll carry you up the steps. And he weighed about 200 and some pounds with his braces, 6'1" man, 22 years old. And he got on my back, And I started carrying him up the steps, and then I remembered a couple of things. First, I remembered that I was 60 years old. And the second thing I had forgotten was that I had had a very serious knee injury. And I had been told that it was pretty seriously injured. I might even have to have surgery on it, possibility of replacement, all of that kind of stuff. And I couldn't even play tennis or run without a brace on it for the previous several years. And as I got about 4 or 5 steps up up that castle, suddenly my leg just started to buckle. And I realized that we were going to collapse, and I could see the headlines in the Assisi Daily News. You know, Guru collapses, and 2,000 people are all tumbling down this. And suddenly, the night before, I'd given a lecture on Francesco, and I had talked about his biographer, Nikos Kazantzakis, who had called him the last Christian, and what his calibration level was. I had been talking about that. And I saw St. Francis. I saw him standing right there before me, and it was a transformation in my life. And my leg righted itself, and I stood up, and I started walking up those 3 flights of stairs, and suddenly I realized that my knee didn't hurt at all. And I started not just walking, but I started to run up the steps with this 200-pound man on my back at the age of 60. And I ran all the way up to the top, and my wife was up there at the top, and another 25 or 30 people who were there to see the place where St. Clare. She was the first woman admitted into the Franciscan order by Francesco. And I got to the top, and she said to me, my wife said to me, she said, "What are you doing?" She said, "You ran up those steps. You're not even out of breath. Everybody else is trying to catch their breath from walking, and you ran up here with John on your back? That's not possible." And I went out, and I walked over to that ledge, and I put my hands together, and I was giving thanks in that moment. And someone on a trip snapped that photograph, and we made it the cover, and it was calibrated at such a high level. And to this day, that was almost 3 years ago, that was on the feast day of St. Francis, the 4th of October. I play tennis on this, I run on this knee. I haven't worn a brace since. I can dance on it. I can just, it's like the knee has been totally, completely healed. And it all took place in an instant.